just. But yeah, the normal way that it works with like most people's podcasts is it's like this big introduction and rolling into things and stuff like that. But really, what I'll do is I'll get a bit where we're sort of starting into a conversation like naturally, and then we'll just go from there. Because I've noticed like with a couple of podcast episodes I've done, it sort of takes about 5 or 10 minutes for everyone to feel a bit more relaxed. And I feel like that beginning part of it is maybe it like makes it feel a little bit less relaxed, if you know what I mean. So that's sort of like the way I sort of like to try and do it. I'm probably going to be coughing a couple of times throughout as well.
No worries.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind just sort of introducing yourself and what you do, a little bit more about Marvin and some of the projects you've got going on. I'm loving all the content you've got going on LinkedIn. I've been following you for a long time. So yeah, super excited to have this conversation with you today. I think we've got a lot of similarities, a lot of things in common. So I think there'll be some really awesome discussion. So would you just like to start off by just introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Swapratim, and I'm an AR enthusiast, and especially web-based augmented reality. A couple of years back, in late 2020, I was very interested to see some AR in everyday life, and I found that there was some kind of a gap. What we are seeing in the movies and ads and YouTube videos, they're not really coming into the real life. So I was looking for some solution, being a kind of problem solver all the time. And I have also been in this IT industry for more than a decade, working extensively in AI, many technologies, programming, and other roles like pre-sales and sales. So being in very different fields, I expected and understood that there was a gap which we could solve with a piece of technology, and WebAR could be the solution. So I tried to create a platform based on that to solve that gap, which is Marvin XR, a platform studio which we built from scratch. So I'm also the co-founder of Marvin XR, and I have another co-founder, Ajanta, and we actually built the whole platform. Now we have a small team. Our company is based in Copenhagen and Denmark, and that's what we are trying to, expand and grow and making some more impact in the real lives of people.
Amazing. Yeah, do you feel a little bit like it's like AR is having its sort of second wind? Like I mentioned this a couple of times on some of the interviews and podcasts I've done, but there was a lot of attention to AR, I feel, maybe a couple of years back. And then potentially maybe the whole pandemic era might have sort of accelerated that a little bit more. And I'm now seeing a lot of, case studies coming out from different platforms, big brands using AR. Do you feel a little bit like, it's having a second wind, or do you feel like it's sort of been quite consistent sort of since, well, not since the start of AR, but like, the last sort of few years?
I think there are two folds. Number one, AR was there in the Gartner's hype cycle. So Gartner has a technology hype cycle, which means when a technology emerges, it goes on with a hype and then it comes down on the hype cycle. And when the technology is matured enough that it is not in the hype cycle, Gartner removes that from the hype cycle, which means the technology is matured enough so that it can be used across the industry. In 2018, Gartner actually removed AR or augmented reality from Gartner's hype cycle, which means they estimated that the technology is matured enough to be used in every industry. And since then, we could actually see the ongoing adoption increase in different industries.
Right.
But you are absolutely right. In 2020, when everything was stopped, but there are like 7 billion people, we still have to shop, we have to live. So online shopping experience just boomed like this way. And many e-commerce platforms, they just double, tripled or quadrupled that profit margin within this time frame. So technically, and almost 1.5 year, that varies in different countries, how long these lockdowns went on in different countries, our whole online shopping experience has changed forever. People are more nowadays, they don't want to go to brick and mortar shop. They want to do a quick check in online e-commerce stores. And that's why, more and more e-commerce stores are booming up. They're, expanding their region, they're expanding their service and all the stuff. Right. So AR was actually a vital part, because when there's no way you can go to a shop and check how the product would look like, but if you have an option that you can actually look how it looks like in your own room, it gives you much more wing to, interesting or getting interested to buy or spend on that product,
Mm.
which actually makes sense. And that's where we could actually see that the whole growth of using AR in e-commerce sector is ongoing since last 2 years. And to my guess, it will just increase because the shift has changed. And now it will just go on in an incline, so steep rise. So
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I feel that especially during a pandemic, a lot of people, like, their behaviors had to change. Like, as you were saying, like, a lot of people having to get used to shopping online who wouldn't otherwise, and using different technologies to sort of carry out everyday work, such as, going on Zoom to have meetings and things like that. And I definitely feel like AR is a component of that, because it's quite a new technology, as we're talking about, but it's sort of forcing people to, because of the pandemic, like forcing people into sort of new behaviors. And yeah, I've read the Snapchat census, I think it's 2020 or 2021, saying that 100 million consumers used AR to shop with, and that they're still happy to basically look towards AR for shopping next year. So it sort of shows like the adoption taken by people has been accelerated. And then, yeah, I think it's completely, like, agree with you. It's going to be a continuous thing. And not just the fact that it's a popular thing, and I guess it's slight novelty for some people, but also that, these devices that we're using every day are now being built with, AR capabilities. So I feel like a big question I got for you, and I'm always super interested to find out about this with people, is that I feel a lot of people in our, e-commerce industry and other industries who I'm talking to about AR, they might feel like AR is going to become a bigger thing when AR glasses come out. But I'm trying to get people to understand that the devices we have now already have the capabilities within them. It's just about people getting used to using them in certain places. So do you feel like it's going to take a catalyst such as, AR glasses to become a more household thing for AR to really take off? Or is it just a matter of people getting used to, this adoption curve that we're talking about? Like, it's just sort of carrying on that way?
yeah, that's an interesting question. Yes, of course, when we see the movie Iron Man, it always comes up to us like, yes, if we could have an AR glass, something like that, it'd be very cool. And I think last week there was an announcement that one company just introduced the AR contact lens for the first time. Their CEO actually wore the AR contact lens, and that's pretty cool.
Mm.
But AR glasses or headset, it could be HoloLens, it could be Magic Leap 2, it could be some AR glasses from Huawei or some other companies. Think about one thing, that these glasses are expensive. If we want to commercialize one technology or want to reach more people in the world, we need to make them either cheap or to embed into something which could be reachable to a massive number of people. How many people are going to spend $2,000 to just buy some AR glasses to have 10 seconds of air experience
Mm.
or 1 hour of air experience? Probably a handful number of people from handful number of countries. But if you want to reach literally like 7 million people, not even 7 million people, if you want to reach like 20% of them across the globe, you need to go through some ways where there should be some viable way of reaching air to the common people.
Mm.
And I think using the smartphone is one of the smartest move to democratize air, because smartphone is on the rise even nowadays, from a developed country to a developing country, from Africa or Asia or even other countries. Everyone is almost like a quite comparatively a good smartphone in their hands,
Yeah.
and air can be used very easily in there. But also you have to keep it in mind, even if they have the smartphone, the level of network bandwidth is a key role while playing AR. So even if you're trying to, open Snapchat and trying to play a very, machine extensive AR, it could just drain all your network bandwidth. So that part, you should also keep it in mind. I
Mm.
think web-based AR has this positive, you know, technological advancement, because web AR, all it doesn't take a lot of apps. It doesn't take any apps to download in the first place. You just open it in the browser. That's the best part. It doesn't take any baggage. The amount of download is very less, And for example, one technology we are using in our platform is actually covers the point that 2.9 billion devices across the world are compatible with our technology. So 2.9 billion devices can simply use our AR without upgrading a single thing, without upgrading even their network bandwidth. Just with the low bandwidth, they can play AR simply on the web browser.
Right.
So this, I think, a better way to reach, on a mass scale in the society, because we don't need to think about the 0.1%. Those, the rich people will always have their fun with more advanced, sophisticated thing. Maybe in 10 years, in 15 years, AR glasses will be much more cheaper to be adopted on a mass scale. But at this point of time, I don't think it's going to happen in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, because I mean, we already have the capabilities of using this stuff, and I think it's a lot of people have a lot of sort of different misconceptions about AR, and I'm interested to hear, the ones you're used to feeling, but specifically for e-commerce and for marketing and for this sort of area, people may have already seen a few AR examples. They might have seen, IKEA, a couple of big brands, or they have, I guess from examples they've seen, they maybe pigeonhole AR into certain things. Like you can only use it for this, you can only use it for this. Are there any sort of common misconceptions you get if you're talking to anybody who's interested in using AR for marketing? Like what's the most common ones you get?
It's funny. The most common one I can remember is like people actually look for the exact VR experience in AR, and they think like AR and VR are the same thing, which is kind of, expecting like a whole movie to just be played in AR, and why I can't do that? Why you can't do that? And it's like, no, you can't do that because that's the difference between AR and VR. So that's the whole misconception I always get, like that people try to incorporate VR experience in AR and they just wonder why it can't happen. Another one in e-commerce, I think like they have a misconception of it's very expensive,
Yeah.
that it's not very feasible to invest in AR because the ROI might not be that high when you invest too much, and it's so expensive to include in your business strategy. And it's true to some extent because making an AR app, especially, is very costly. Even if you go to a very, generic cost estimation of building an AR app, for a very basic model, it can take like between $5,000 to $20,000 to make an app compatible both with Android and iOS. And if you go with an advanced one, it can go between 30,000 to up to $200,000, which is quite huge. And then you have to, hire developers. They have to upload in different platforms like iStore or Play Store, keep them, fix the bugs, and it's a lot of work, a lot of money to be spent on. And true, that's a lot of investment. If their business are not getting that ROI, why should they invest? But again, that myth we are trying to break with WebAR, because in WebAR or web-based AR, you don't necessarily need to spend that much. We can build an AR experience like 1/10 of that cost, even less. And the building of an AR experience, so that's what we are actually trying to using our platform. Like you can simply create a web AR experience in less than 1 minute.
Wow.
And that's fast. You can actually create your fast AR experience and publish it to the world. And the other, benefit of like this is like if there's a bug in the app, for example, you have to like fix, go to the store, upload, wait for 4 days, then it's getting published. Then user need to download or update their app. Only they can actually see the difference. For web-based, it doesn't need to do that. Just in the platform, you have to change the stuff once, publish, and it's immediately changed everywhere. So whoever is viewing this or just refresh their browser, they're seeing the whole new changes coming in. They don't need to update, they don't need to force to do anything else. Much more smoother way of doing this. So that is something we are actually trying to break those, the myths and the misconceptions in the market. Another point I have heard once or twice is like AR is just, shiny toy. It's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
just came along with some time and it will just fade away in some time. So why should we just give so much attention to it? And every time something is coming up like NFT and AR and blockchain and VR, everyone is shouting with that. And why should we just give it attention? So,
Mm.
but everything has their own domain and traction and use cases. So AR has its own way of getting utilized. And I think e-commerce is actually understanding it pretty faster than the other domains. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think that leads beautifully onto my next question of, e-commerce brands who are interested in AR maybe have a bit more of an understanding. Maybe they see an example of something within the industry or their competitors are using it. How would you direct people who are first like interested in finding out about it? Like what sort of resources would you provide? Or how would you get someone started basically?
Yeah. So, well, there are three types of AR, if we start with that. One is like the extreme advanced one. For example, like headset or AR glasses. If you want to make an app for them, like for HoloLens, for the Magic Leap 2, they're very expensive. You need to learn for months before you even can start, which is quite extensive learning phase. Number two is like if you want to create lens experience like Snapchat, like Facebook, and so on and so forth, you can create AR lenses, AR experience, which is also take some time to learn and skill yourself before you can start selling your product and your work. Number three is like if you want to use AR experience for either for utilizing in e-commerce segment or to resell or to sell your service, AR as a service, like SaaS. Now it's kind of an AS, AR as a service.
Mm.
Uh, you can use WebAR because that's what I normally recommend people because WebAR has a very less amount of learning. You can learn for like 15 minutes and create your first AR experience and publish it to the world. And you
Mm.
don't need to like be an expert in order to do a lot of things in order to create a very extensive AR experience. Because technically, if there's a 3D model, sorry, there's a 3D model, you can actually just import that 3D model and with a no-code platform, you can create your web AR experience for the first time. So that's very, I'm sorry, extremely sorry.
No worries.
So that's where I normally prefer people to go with an web AR segment because it's easy to learn, especially for the no coder people or people from advertising, marketing, or other segment business analysts who do not have any idea about how to code or how to do things from technical perspective. They can simply learn web AR in very easy way. Another thing I have seen is you can find a lot of tutorials, documents,
Mm.
YouTube videos on how to learn AR, how to make your AR apps, and so on and so forth. But mostly they're for the developers. That's
Yeah.
very good, but that's a very technical documents. So people who are interested, but they don't have the technical background, often they have a barrier to enter into the AR segment.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem. And there's technically no very good documentation or ebook which can actually help them for like advertising people or marketing people to learn AR, how to learn the best practices when you try to learn or try to sell AR as a service. So to mitigate this gap, actually, I also have written an ebook and I published last year. This is called the Web Augmented Reality Success Guide, everything you need to know about web AR. So you can find this ebook in our website, ebook.marvinxr.com. And this book is actually addressing both the points. So being from a developer, you can learn a lot, and also being a non-technical person, you learn the entire aspect of AR, business cases, industry aspects, use cases, what are the best practices to use it, launch marketing campaigns, sell it, benefit from the, from an ROI perspective, and a lot more things.
Mm.
So these are the two factors I'd recommend there.
Oh, that's an awesome resource, and I didn't know about that. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have a look into that as well, and we'll share, in the
Sure.
description of this and some of the resources. But yeah, obviously you just said the link there. But I think that's an amazing resource for people to check out. because a lot of the people I speak to, within the marketing world, they understand, some of the metrics from either the sort of case study content that we've done, or they've seen Metas, or they've seen Snapchats, or they've seen some case study success stories from somewhere else. And they're sort of coming with a physical product or something, and they're trying to understand, okay, how can we use AR to promote our product to sort of cold audiences? But, the more I've got into AR and the more I've learned about it, the more I realize like it can be used in different parts of the marketing funnel. So you can use it for, bringing completely new people in, even just building awareness, driving people straight to the product page, but also post-purchase experiences, or giving people a little bit more out of the products. So I'm quite interested to find out, your thoughts on that side of things, because looking into this more, and I think I've seen some content of yours on, this side of things, where you're able to basically mitigate a lot of the customer service style issues that people have. For example, say with a physical product, having it sent in, not sent in, so having it arrive and you get it out, and you then have an AR experience with it, and it will have things like a manual in it, or how to use it properly, how to store it, all these things. And all of these things can be, visualized into an awesome AR experience. And I think, with AR, a lot of people feel like they focus on the front end, but I think there's actually a lot of magic in the back end of this for, even like customer retention. As I said, like giving people like the best way to use our product, things like that. So have you seen many examples of that? Is it more like the front end side that people in e-commerce use AR for? Or do you feel, there's more sort of post-purchase sort of stuff that people could do with AR?
To be honest, the trend is just started. So mostly, well, when there's a new trend is starting up, people always try to use it for the front end because that's more shinier part.
Mm.
And that's where people just try to use, because, for example, Shopify is seeing like 25%, no, up to 40% of less product return when they introduce augmented reality on their product catalog,
Wow.
compared to the products which they don't have AR on the product catalog. Now, Shopify is hosting 100,000 businesses on their platforms, right? And they have like 20% of the businesses they are using AR. So that's close to like 20,000 business.
That's huge.
Now, that's huge. And that's only one of them. And Shopify is not even the biggest e-com platform in the global market,
Mm.
ranking. And the other ones who are also having this, they are having. So recently, I just published the rank of, or the list of all the e-com marketplaces. And if you see the number of businesses who are using this, they're huge.
Mm.
And most of them, they're trying to use this to showcase their product in the product catalog. That's very easy. And that's also very entertaining, for not only entertaining, but also utilizable for the end user and the customers.
Mhm.
Because how it will look like, for example, a shoe or a sofa, if I just can check quickly on an AR, it looks much more relevant to me
Yeah.
instead of just seeing a picture. So that's why we are seeing more and more trends to utilizing this, because of course the business, they have just started experimenting. So the easiest part of doing the experimentation is on the front end. But as you have said, it is having a very much higher potential to use the AR cases for in the backend stuff. Like, for example, like IKEA. Whenever you buy something, it always comes with a manual of 40 pages that how to
Yeah.
configure the whole stuff. And like it's always a pain to go through every page and see how it's going on. Instead, if you just see in an AR, this whole stuff is getting built upon step by step. That's much better. And
It's
if,
huge.
of course, you still have to get this ebook just to make sure when you do all this, nuts and bolts stuff, you still have to have this page around you. But seeing the whole step by step process is much more clear to you than before. So this kind of stuff, it's not only IKEA is one of the examples, and IKEA is one of the pioneers in utilizing AR in industry, right?
Mm.
So they are expanding their AR app in many ways nowadays. But also, I could see that some of the other companies, they have started looking a way to make sure that the user manuals can be converted into AR, so people can still have fun. They don't have to they don't have to read a lot of manuals. They don't have to get lost in doing wrong stuff in configuration, and they can still have the joy of having, something new they can show to their friends and families, and that could actually sell by mouth, or you know they just sell, spread the word, and that actually increase their sales. So this is something that AI can actually help them to grow their business. So yes, I think in near future we are going to see more and more this kind of back end business cases with AI for sure.
Yeah, I love that example, the IKEA. Um, I've seen some of their stuff, but I haven't seen anything like that. But that's such a good use of AR for that, and it had me thinking. I imagine, getting a new car, for example, and then you just install BMW's app, and you get it on the app, and you shine it around, and it tracks the logo or something, and it triggers the AR, and then it tells you about the dashboard and all sorts of things like that. So much more of a good, enjoyable experience when you just spend all this money on a car than getting this manual out and reading, hundreds of pages of stuff like that. So I feel like it's that alone is going to just, give the customer so much more value afterwards. And of course, it doesn't have to be furniture or, cars. It can literally be anything. And I've seen AR being used a lot for education. So, things that apply within the education sector or within medical or engineering and things like that, you could still apply those same principles of how those people are being taught certain things, but for your product and for your audiences. So it's just amazing.
Right.
This is exactly the sort of discussion I love, because it shows people the potential behind this, and we're already seeing slithers of these ideas coming out. And I feel like the people who are just start to get used to AR, they only see like a very narrow, like Overton's window, like a very like narrow window of what it is. And the more you delve into it, the more you see, of what the future is of it. And this is usually like where sort of towards the end of the podcast, I like to go a bit more futuristic. But like the metaverse is this very big discussion. It's been going on now for a couple of years, especially with Meta, sort of launching and things like that. In my belief is the metaverse, this sort of concept everyone has. My belief is that it's going to be AR before it's VR, because I think, especially with this whole Ready Player One idea, everyone's envisioning the metaverse will be this thing where we just jump into a headset and we stay in our room and we explore the world, which I do see happening, definitely, but it's just like that sort of thing isn't practical in people's lives. So I'm interested to sort of see how you feel. Like, do you feel like AR, because it's already more practical in people's lives already. We're already seeing some iterations of it happening. Like, do you feel like that's really what the first sort of bridge to the metaverse is going to be, like AR overlaying our life? And is that going to, again, like predicate on, the technology, essentially like 5G and things like that?
To be honest, I may disappoint you in this sector, but to my understanding, metaverse is we are not ready for metaverse yet, at least from a technological standpoint. Uh, to my understanding, metaverse is equivalent to a virtual world like internet. You just can't have 10 different or 100 different metaverse. It's one metaverse
Mm.
shared by everyone, like internet. We haven't reached that technological advancement yet. With our current technology, we don't have that ability to create a simultaneous Web 5 or Web 10 or whatever you call it.
Mm.
It's that metaverse level. So when we talk about ready player, that level of augmentation, yes, I think you're right. When we reach there, AR should be the first one that should include, or we should include as an experience in metaverse. And of course, people who are not ready to go outside, they still want to remain inside and they still want to be part of that experience. They can always use VR headset and you know get into that metaverse. But to me, it's sort of an internet. So it doesn't matter if you're going to google.com sitting at your garden space or from your drawing room. It's the google.com itself or it's the Facebook itself. It's part of one internet. We are seeing so many metaverse. It's like, I'm sorry for the wordings, but it's like, popping up the gaming experience and saying that we have our own metaverse. Hey, play with us. That's funny, that's trendy, but probably that's not the real metaverse we are talking about.
Mm.
I think we still have to wait for a few years before we are ready with this, the foundation of how we can lay over the augmentation layer across the internet and create one single platform where anyone can go in there, use or experience or do whatever they want to do, like in metaverse world. That would be the ideal case or ideal metaverse in my understanding. So, but yes, I think you're right. AR should be the first one that should come into the metaverse, followed by VR afterwards. I
Yeah,
don't know. It could be the reverse one, but it would be interesting to wait
yeah,
and see.
no, no, exactly. It's just this concept at the moment, and it's just gathered a lot of people's interest, and some people obviously using it to their advantage to sort of sell certain things. And I think even the name itself, it sort of suggests that Meta is going to own the metaverse and things like that. But you're completely right. It's
Yeah,
going to be this, like the internet. No one necessarily owns the internet, as far as I'm aware. It's just like obviously a load of servers, but it's a shared space for everyone. And of course, with it, all
yeah,
these companies currently creating their own metaverses, how does that gap bridge? And they're all completely different from each other, and the way that they work and the operation systems, is it going to be like jumping in and out of one of like Doctor Strange's multiverse of madness? Is it going to be like that, where you have a portal to jump into, like the sandbox world, and then you jump into, or it's far more likely that it's, as you say, like this overlaying augmented reality that everybody shares in some fashion, like whether it's through networks or something like that. But I think it's very important that, like with the internet, I guess with the social platforms that we've come to sort of use daily, on a daily basis, everybody's very conscious of their data and of their privacy and things like that. So it needs to be, there can't be, essentially can't be one company or corporation or owning the metaverse. It can't be it for one person's benefit. So I think there's a lot of ethics and
right.
things that get involved. And if we rush into it, then it's not going to be a very good space for everyone. Because even if you
No,
imagine like an augmented reality world where anyone can advertise to anyone, you have loads of ads popping up all day, and you're like, it's sort of like what the internet was when you first started on the internet. It's just always those pop-ups all the time. So it could be something like that. I think as humans, as we evolve, hopefully we're getting smarter and learning from our mistakes. So we'll sort of try and navigate around that and really create something. There's a thing called like Project Area with Meta, where they're looking at the ethics of AR and how it can actually like help people, and how it can make our city safer, and how it can help educate people and things like that. So a lot of projects like that, they're very important for looking at the ethics of this, and not necessarily letting big companies take advantage of this concept that's not even a thing yet, and developing it into a thing that's super beneficial for everyone. So yeah, I guess it's still super speculative, and it could end up completely anything. But it's always really interesting to hear from everyone within this industry, and like what they believe it is, because I speak to people from the NFT world, and they have a completely different view of what it's going to be. Developers have a different view of what it's going to be, and then everyday normal people in different areas, I guess they sort of don't fully understand what it's going to be, and maybe it frightens them. So yeah, I love to have this sort of discussion and figure out what people's view on it is going to be.
Right. Ethics is a very important part of this one because, to be honest, if when it is open for the public and anyone can use metaverse, very often, where as we have seen with Facebook, the violence, the hatred speech and hatred message can be very easily can be spread out in also in metaverse. That could be a challenge and problem. Also, we have to keep it in mind that 3% of internet, what we see on the surface or what we know as internet, is just the 3% of the entire internet. 97% is part of dark web,
Yeah.
which is still internet, completely unregulated, used for several unethical activities, and so on and so forth. So, how to save them? How to make sure that who is controlling metaverse, how all the regulations have been maintained, who is fueling the infrastructure, which country, what regulation, what kind of business, individual, what kind of activities can be regulated, and so on and so forth. All these things are defined properly, and data, of course, which should be or cannot be stolen to used in dark web or some kind of unethical activities, etc. Opening metaverse for public could also be a challenge. Not only challenge, but it could be some inviting some unforeseen criminal activities as well. I mean, metaverse is exciting from technical perspective, but there are a lot of people who are waiting to exploit the technology for their own benefit. People have people who are working on the metaverse to make sure it is coming in a very recent time. They also have to focus on this part just to make sure that ethical part is fully, covered up before they open this for public.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's important everyone has their awareness of, what it could become, but I'm sure it won't be now that
Yeah,
we've gone through the same mistakes with a few different technologies now. It was
yeah.
super interesting, and for people who listen to this or watch it later, for marketers, for agencies, especially within the e-commerce space and other places, like other than sort of resources you mentioned earlier, like if they want to learn a bit more about you or your company, like where would you like to sort of direct them to learn a bit more?
Sure. You can always come back to our website, www.marvinxr.com. If you want to learn more about me, you can always reach out to me in my LinkedIn profile, linkedin.com/Swapratim, Swapratim. And yes, I also have some blogs in Medium. If you want to read more blogs, medium.com/Swapratim. And yes, if you want to reach me out, write to me at sr@marvinai.live, or to my email address. And otherwise, you can always write to our support site in the website, and we'll reach out to you as well.
Amazing. Yeah, and I definitely recommend people follow you on LinkedIn, because your LinkedIn is very consistently awesome content, which is super educational and super interesting for anyone interested in AI. So yeah, I definitely recommend.
Thank you so much.
You on there. But yeah, this has been an amazing discussion, and yeah, I'd love to have you back on a bit later on. As we delve into the rest of this year or the beginning of next year, and we see how AI has developed to that point, maybe much further than we thought or not.
Yeah,
but thank you so much for coming on. It's been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And thank you so much for calling me in the podcast. It was my pleasure to be part of this. And yes, great to talk to you about AI. So yes.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much, and see you all later.
Thank you. See you later then. Have a great day.